Hi, welcome to the wrap-up for Car Design Dialogues, Day 2, Day 1, the whole shebang. Thanks very much to Abel and Larry for that final session about Magna Bold Perspective Award, the brief, and we're looking forward to seeing the entries coming into that soon. Welcome back, Abel.
Well, you were quick over from Detroit.
So quick, yeah. I couldn't believe he was live in Detroit, and now he's live in London. He hasn't bought a bottle opener, which I'm quite disappointed about.
That's for the students, James.
Yes. So sorry. Yes, the students. You're quite right. We should keep that to one side. Well, thanks very much to the team. I suppose it'd be nice to hear from some of you about your highlights of the week. I'm going to start with you, Chris, and work my way anti-clockwise to myself. But starting with you, Chris.
Start with you and with me. Well, I mean, again, it's what a whirlwind the past couple of days. I think I've said it every time I've kind of had the chance why we were here, why Car Design Dialogues North America, and it's all about this transition, which, of course, it's sort of demanded in the industry. It's if you like, mandated to a certain extent from regulations and things, but designers have the role of one, being ahead of the changes that are coming, and then obviously working within the constraints that are presented to them. That was something that came out of when we talk about other industries like aviation. I think some of the best design probably comes when you have to fit a constraint. But I think we covered it across so many different sessions, whether it's the topographies of SUV and pickup and what you do with that as things change and technology changes, and we go to electrification, and then even further out, obviously, with autonomous and changing mobility patterns. But I don't want to regurgitate all that. I mean, I think this morning for me, the session that I had the pleasure of hosting on ethical, sustainable materials, where we had perspectives from aviation, we had perspectives from industrial furniture. We had Chris Bangle there to really challenge and probe at every sort of level. And of course, in typical Bangle fashion, we ended up, talking about avoiding hell through through a different mentality.
Yes, it really draws on that background as a Methodist. That's always the family heritage there.
But I think one of the key points that he made, which was really interesting and was really exciting to tweak out, is for designers not to think in, yes, you need the big picture, but think about life cycle, but think about multiple life cycle. What happens when you take a material or a product and design it not just with its current use in mind, but what its second, third, fourth use might be. Maybe, as I think one of the panels pointed out, maybe engineers have a little bit more experience with things like that, because there's certain, usage patterns and things you're going to think about in terms of disassembly, etc. But for design, that seems like a huge shift and way of thinking about it, especially in the automotive industry, when everything tended and historically is about new launch, updates, refresh, new. Everything kind of needs to, kind of start kind of all about generating more as opposed to repurposing at the high level. So that is such a kind of interesting step change, and we see it happening in the industry. But I think there's reasons to be, positively skeptical about some of the things that are happening. So I don't want to say anything against the use of flaxseed or cactus or whatever kind of organic material is there, but there does need to obviously be some consideration about what really is applicable and what's the real story that we're trying to say, what's the real goal and purpose. And I think that is a wide open question, and one that we're just sort of starting to get into, and we tweaked it out. I'm really excited about that because we have our interior futures brand that we're pushing now through live streams, through our interior motors publication, and we really want to get at what is going to shift and change the industry. And I think this event set the tone for the rest of the year and years to come on that.
I do think that's an interesting point. We generally tend to center this debate around interiors, which is a natural home for it. But just picking up on that, what Ahab Kaoud was saying about the idea of 3D printed design, manufacturing, 3D printing, going way back to the opening session actually, and this idea that you would be able to sort of download new parts and things like that and scan them in and 3D print them at home. I mean, this is, obviously future tech, but it does feed into that idea that if something doesn't necessarily have a second life, it could have a longer life in some ways. Abel, how about you?
Well, I just think it's amazing how we got all those computers to work most of the time, which was
I think
always
the key,
most of the
I
time.
think the key phrase is most of the time.
But what I really found interesting was the session that I did with Derek Jenkins when we had the Derek Jenkins Day. And he spoke about collaboration, the way their studio is set up. And it was brought up, Chris, actually, in that session where Chris Bangle was in, by the guy from aviation, talking about, we need to be bored in earlier. We need to collaborate together. We need to get on the weird bus and drive together, whoever's going to be driving. Definitely don't let Chris Bangle drive, but...
definitely don't brand it the weird bus either. I'm not sure he's going to get much take up.
But I like the idea about collaboration, early adoption. It was mentioned quite a few times, isn't it? If we get that right from the outset, then you can create beautiful products. You get faster to market. You get the technology integrated quicker through some of the technology suppliers. I thought the session with Epic Games was awesome, having those guys there, especially experts.
Yes, experts, yeah, absolutely.
Experts, which is really interesting as well. And seeing some of the technology demonstrated by Adobe that Chris did, and Lincoln showing their heritage of what they've done and what they've learned with AR, I thought was really interesting. It was a lovely balance of the program. And obviously, the best session was the one about the bold perspective, global wars, and mainly because it's celebrating the next generation.
Yes.
We've got a lot of experienced people there, but CDN has a rich heritage through the Interior Motives Awards or Cartoon News China Awards. This is really important. So I was quite pleased that you guys very generously allowed me to do that session. So thank you for.
We were just all a bit tired, to be frank, Abel. That was it. We've
I think
run
you
out
were
of
all
steam.
drinking. Is probably the right.
No.
Not
joking.
And Mike, you had a variety of sessions actually, from the technical to the kind of the design figurehead. Give us some quick whistle stop tour around some of that.
Yeah, it's been a pretty busy couple of days, and we've had some fantastic speakers, and I've been lucky enough to chair some great sessions. One of which today was with Henrik Fisker, and it's a pleasure speaking to him whenever I get to chat to him. I think what the brand is trying to do, what his company is doing, is really not easy. Trying to make the world's most sustainable car it's pretty heroic, and we tagged this event. It came with the tagline of "Towards a Sustainable Future," and this topic is something that has to be, I think, front and center for everything in design, and not just design, but everything in the automotive industry itself as well. It's so important. So speaking to Henrik was fantastic, and also he's a designer and he's a CEO as well. So
yes.
It's great to see and hear from him about his perspective on design and what he's doing with his team there. And then so many great sessions. HMI and UX was a really big talking point as well throughout the past couple of days. I think my highlight potentially from yesterday, there were a couple, and maybe it's a bit of a close call, but I really enjoyed the wrap-up session with Ralph Gilles. I think he's just such a huge inspiration. He's done such amazing things. He's very he doesn't want to brag too much about what he's done, but the story there at Chrysler is just incredible, and what he's now doing with Stellantis and his colleagues there, it's pretty amazing. So
it's a little bit like the Queen. The Queen has survived 15 prime ministers, and
he's seen 9
Ralph was on his 9th or 10th CEO. So.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I
So he knows how to
want
wheel the wheels.
Yeah.
I did kind of want to ask him if he was just another one turns up, and he's like, yeah. But absolutely. Mike, Ralph was a joy to speak to. He brings with him such energy and such enthusiasm. considering he's been in that company in various different guises under various different umbrellas and amalgamations for since 1992, he's maintained an incredible amount of enthusiasm for absolutely everything. And I think there's lots of lessons to be learned from him. My own perspective, I had a couple of sessions today. You mentioned the HMI one with Epic Games, which was obviously a fun and interesting discussion, a hot topic, continuing to sort of evolve at frightening speed. Moving as sort of, well, gathering momentum, I suppose, is the idea of the future of the pickup, which has been, as we discussed earlier, Chris, this idea of the chicken tax, and it had been a kind of segment that had sort of been forged in a kind of very unique ecosystem, but is now being placed at the forefront of kind of some of the biggest changes facing the industry, and that's having a kind of an enormous knock-on effect to sort of how designers going to tackle that. If you don't know the chicken tax, well, maybe you should.
Well, I mean, I'm sure our audience generally knows it, but the pickup, the reason the pickup is so particularly special in the US, not just because of the desire for big vehicles and all that kind of thing, but because this has effectively been a market which has kind of had this protective layer over it, right? Going back to a dispute with Germany in the early 60s over chicken exports, which resulted in a 25% tax on any kind of commercial vehicle built outside of the US and then later North America, which means that, you know, the likes of Ford, GM, Chrysler, Ram, etc., have kind of incubated in a different setting than elsewhere. And of course, other brands come with pickup trucks, but nowhere is the pickup this cross section between lifestyle, luxury, you know, everything,
all of the above,
as it is in North America. And I think that's what makes entrants like Rivian and Canoo very interesting. Now, you had a really interesting discussion there about whether or not that is coming onto the territory or coming at a different place, but you know, I think the field is littered with those who've kind of tried and failed to break into that space. And when you look at the pickup in Europe, or you know, most of the pickups we see here are fairly scaled back, kind of simple products, often, you know, built elsewhere, imported. It's not the same product, but that's what's so cool. And I think for designers, it's being challenged, no question, and it maybe its raison d'être comes into question, but the opportunity, as you see with the Lightning, to kind of literally power this bi-directional power, literally power the workplace. It's maybe its true meaning comes back a bit more.
This kind of this rugged individualism, this frontier spirit, where you can cowboy, sort of, you know, you're outside the grid because you're. You can power your home because you've got this highly developed sort of piece of almost rolling infrastructure, which I think is absolutely fascinating. The other thing that we decided to explore the tension between some of these new startup brands as pickups as lifestyle vehicles and kind of versus the kind of more traditional lifestyle / kind of working vehicle. But I mean, the way they're evolving and developing. I mean, Carl Smith, our correspondent, you know, the 3-box sedan is now spelt TRUCK, and I think that's really an interesting thing, the universality of these products, or this typology that could be a lot more. It could be the primary vehicle, whereas
I think, as Carl pointed out too, like if you're looking at the downroad graphic of a pickup, how do you sort of change them? And Ehab in the first session pretty much described the B pillar of a F-150 as perfect. And
he did.
I don't really disagree. I mean, I think
it's good. Why would you
change it? But at the same time, as a designer, that's exactly what you can, you know, the opportunity to do it. So I think that space is so interesting, and I think there's a reason why all of our sessions sometimes are packed with people wanting to go into detail, whether it's data-driven interiors or pickup or SUV, because it's not the last of that discussion. Certainly not here for CDN, and that's why reason we'll pick that back up in live streams. More panels throughout the year, building to getting back together as well, right? To being in person. In LA. I mean, that's at least the first touch point for CDN. In print.
What is that you've got there?
No. Interior Motors is returning to print. This isn't the actual return to print issue, of course, it's a historic issue, but it's coming back after a couple of years, sort of in a digital format, which has been great and a real sort of interesting way to explore car interiors and design stories. But yes, twice a year it's going to come back as a kind of prestige thumper that's going to land on people's desks and hopefully make a bit of an impact. So, we're on the hunt for case studies at the moment. We're looking at publish date of late May, I think.
And what's so special about this year, James?
Well, as long as you don't promise to not go into the kind of the backstory, I can say that
Interior Futures is the future, but let's talk for 1 minute about the past.
It's
been around for a while.
It's the 20th year anniversary, so what better time to bring it back as a print product? So we hope that you will enjoy seeing it back on people's desks and in the design studios as it had been.
Yeah. At the same time that we bring you together more frequently for these panels where we can discuss, as said, then coming in LA, and then toward the end of the year, you're all invited to London because that is something very exciting, which is in the works.
Yes. Abel, this is where you leap forward and say, "Come one, come all" to the Car Design News Awards, right?
Yeah, we're very proud of the CDN review book. We're into its 9th year, and we always had a vision of taking design to the next level and celebrating with all of you. And we're going to be launching the first ever award, a Car Design Award, to be named yet. But it's really about the teams behind it.
Yes.
Our strength at Car Design News is the relationships we have with you. And we want to be part of celebrating not only the vice presidents of design and design directors, but the teams that put this together. So we've come up with an award. We're working with the industry directly on creating the categories. We have an executive committee with some of the biggest names in design who are going to give their time and effort in creating categories which actually fit for purpose. We're excited about it. Watch this space. I think James and the team are going to be putting together a big piece for us on Car Design News.
Yes.
And then we'll make the announcement officially in the next few weeks.
Exciting times. But for now,
well, there's one other little bit of news that we do have to note, and I think we do need to raise a little glass because this is
the swan song.
Michael Nash's swan song as deputy editor. Michael has decided to
become a failed musician. No, a hugely successful musician.
He is a couple of years later, too late to join the 27 Club, but Mike, there's also other aspirations that can come, I think, in the career ahead. Now, Michael will still be associated with Car Design News, and you'll still be seeing Mike's content across the pages and website of Car Design News, but is going to be pursuing more music as part of his career. Anyone who's listened to CDN podcasts or other of our will have actually unknowingly heard
all over these products.
Absolutely. But Mike will leave full time, at least. Will leave CDN full time next week. And Mike, we just want to personally thank you for all of your work on CDN, your great contribution, your dedication to design, your passion for it. And I'm sure our audience will join us in that. We're glad we're not actually fully losing you, but we do want to thank you for everything and raise a glass to that.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Cheers, Abel.
Cheers,
I've been told to stay away from the champagne. But anyway, and thanks very much to the audience for tuning into Car Design Dialogues. We hope to see you soon at some point, hopefully in the flesh. But for now, that's all from us.